Welcome to the Powerless Leader podcast. This podcast exists to equip everyday leaders, those of you without titles, authority, or formal power, to influence your world with clarity, courage, and character. So whether you're leading from the classroom, the cubicle, or the coffee shop, each episode offers mindset shifts, practical tools, and stories to help you lead yourselves and those around you, even when you feel like you're powerless. An episode drops every other Thursday, so I invite you to subscribe, to join us, to watch on YouTube, and do whatever it takes to be a part of our community. And we're going to start right now. Welcome back, everybody. I'm so happy to see everybody here. Now, I want you to remember, you are not powerless. If you're tuning into the podcast, I call this the Powerless Leader podcast. And anyone who is really trying to gain their leadership skills, whether they want to actually be in management or not, you have to understand you're not powerless. You just haven't learned how to use your influence. And that's what we're all about here. Is my goal here in the Powerless Leader podcast is to add value to you, to help you build and gain influence of wherever you are, regardless of what your position is at work. Now, today, we're going to talk about an influence killer, and that's passivity. Over the past weeks, as I've released podcasts, our focus has been on you as a human being, as a person, and your own personal leadership skills. Because remember, if you can't lead yourself, you're not going to be able to lead others. And that's what this podcast is about. What these earlier episodes are going to be focused on is helping us lead ourselves. And this includes me. As I build and develop these podcasts, I'm speaking to myself in many cases as much as I'm speaking to everyone here. And that's an important thing to understand. Now, I want you to understand today, again, our focus is on passivity and passion. Passivity is the enemy of influence, and you can't lead by standing still. Again, let me say that passivity is the enemy of influence. That's what it is. We have to understand that as we live our life, as we begin our own personal growth, if we're sitting there being passive, we're never going to be able to gain influence in anything that we do. So I want to talk about the definition of passivity and the definition of passive. I just said the same thing, didn't I? Yes, I did. Well, I apologize for that. And here I go again. So I want to talk about the definition of passivity, what it means to be passive versus what it means to be passionate. And we're going to look at both of those today, compare and contrast those, and how we should be leading in those areas. All right. Well, passivity, let's talk about what that means. By definition, I'm get out my handy dandy ever so trusty notes here. By definition, passivity is the tendency to wait, to avoid conflict, to defer action, or assume somebody else is going to do it. Well, some crazy thing about passivity is often it's under the mask of humility. I'm just being humble. Because I'm letting other people lead, letting other people do. But it's actually what's really going on is feelings of fear, of doubt, and even real disengagement. Passive people tend to be disengaged from the world around them and disengaged from your workplace. And that's not always a positive thing. For me, passivity has really hurt my life. I've gone through, in my first episode, I talked about how I lacked influence during the season of COVID. One of the reasons I lacked influence is because of passivity. And I wasn't standing up. I wasn't talking to people. I wasn't really getting out and making my presence known because I just said, you know what? I'm just going to show up. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to go home. I was very passive at my work. And it cost me that influence. So again, passivity is a tendency to wait, to avoid conflict, to defer, But passion, on the other hand, is a proactive drive fueled by purpose and by vision. Now, being passionate, you have to understand, doesn't mean loud and overbearing, but it means caring enough to act. Now, I have a friend, a new team member, a new colleague at work that I work with now. And he's an amazing guy, and he has real passion for what he does. And I've seen his influence over the past year as a brand new teacher. Over the past actually 2 years, he's been in our school, how he's grown, how his leadership has grown, how people are listening to him. And I've seen that influence grow because of the passion that he has. And that's the difference between passivity and passion. One will kill your influence, one will raise your influence. Now, when I first started kind of putting this podcast together, I noticed the word passivity and passion both have the word pass in them, P-A-S-S. So that rang alarm bells that these two words share the same root, whether Greek, Latin, Germanic, or whatever the root it happens to be. So I decided to do a deep dive into both words. And it comes out to see that they both share the Latin root called patior, all right, which means to suffer and endure. Now, this originally came about in the discussion of the passion of the Christ. Now, I'm not here spreading the gospel as you might think. I'm here talking about leadership. But the word patior came from the passion of Christ and the crucifixion of Christ, and out of that era. And that's kind of where it came from. And in a nutshell, what it means is that suffering that people endure. Now, I think that's kind of interesting, because basically what passion really has come to mean is it means an intense emotional drive. It means that we're kind of motivated and we're willing to personally suffer to see our dream met. And that's what passion is, that we are willing to put things down, to lay things aside, and to suffer in order to reach those goals. That's what passion is. But passivity, on the other hand, it evolved to describe as someone who allows things to happen to them. It's enduring without acting. It's letting others take the lead. But it also means we are suffering because we're suffering the consequences of inaction. And either way, there is suffering. And if I had to put weight on it, the better of the two is the passionate suffering, because at least then we've counted the cost to reach our dreams and reach our goals. But when we're passive, our suffering comes because we're letting other people do things to us, and we're giving them permission to allow that suffering in our lives. So here's the twist. Both words share the same root. And that same root gives us either the fire to pursue our dreams and to lead, or the temptation to retreat and sit back and do nothing. We have to think about that. As a powerless leader, you don't have the luxury of being passive. Our influence doesn't come from waiting around for what may come our way. Our influence comes from choosing passion, even when you feel powerless. Let me say that again. Our influence comes from choosing passion, even when we feel powerless. It comes from choosing to engage, to care deeply, and to suffer for what matters. Now, why is that passivity so dangerous for powerless leaders? For leaders in the middle, for leaders on the bottom, for people who want to make a name and make a difference in your organization, but you don't want to be in management. What is that all about? Well, the first thing is we think as powerless leaders that we have to stay in our lane. We've got a job description. We show up, we do it, we go home. We stay in our lane. We don't rock the boat. We don't rock it. But if we want to build influence, we have to have initiative in the things we do, and we have to be visible to those around us. Passivity blocks influence for 3 reasons. It creates invisibility because others won't know your value. It breeds resentment. When you see what needs fixing and say nothing, and you say, hey, that's really broken. They really need to do something about that. Notice the word, they really need to do something about it, instead of stepping up and doing it ourselves. And it causes resentment in us. And it stalls our momentum. To build influence, we need momentum. We need movement in our life. And I love this quote by John Ortberg. He says, waiting passively is not a spiritual virtue. It's not a virtue at all. It's a way of avoiding responsibility. Just let other people deal with it. That's what passivity is. So what about being passionate? How can I then build myself to go from a passive individual to a passionate individual? And this is something I've struggled with over the years. It's something I had to learn how to deal with. The first thing I had to realize is I had to take ownership for who I was. I had to take ownership from my place in my organization and what I could do for the people around me. I had to learn how to ask questions in meetings, not challenge, but ask questions. We need to learn to speak up, to make ourselves visible. We also can start building our passion, even if we have no clue what we're passionate about. You can begin building passion by helping people around you. Do you have an overwhelmed teammate, somebody who really needs help? Step up and help them. That's what being passionate begins. And you might discover your passion is helping others. Just like my passion is helping you grow, helping you become a better leader. That's my passion. We can also learn to speak words of encouragement. When we become passionate about things, we can begin to encourage. We don't become a whipping boy where we go out and try to push people around. No, but we begin giving that encouraging word. That's what it really comes down to. And passion, your passion will show up in your consistency, your creativity, and your courage to build yourself and to speak out and to make yourself visible. Again, passion shows up in your consistency, your creativity, and your courage. Putting my words together. Brendan Burchard says this: passion is the spark for the fire of action. Without it, your influence will fade. So let's talk about growing in passion and losing our passivity. Just some action steps you can do here. Number 1, ask yourself, where have I been passive? In what areas of my job and my life am I passive in my marriage? Am I passive in my finances? Am I passive somewhere at work, on my team? Ask yourself that. For me, I was passive on my team. I was just doing what was required of me and nothing else. Nothing more, nothing less. I've been passive in other areas. My first marriage fell apart because I was being passive and not leading as I should have as a husband. Then I want you to think about this. What matters enough to me to act on? What matters enough? That's a great question. What matters enough to me to act on? Is it the people around you? Do you care about them? Is there some sort of dream project that you're passionate about in your organization? Is there a local organization, like a food bank? Well, I'm passionate about my local food bank, so I do things for them, and I volunteer my assistance as a leadership coach to help them. What are you passionate about? And number 3, ask yourself, how can you add visible value this week? It's something to think about, something to contemplate. Even if it means just going around, finding a couple of people and complimenting them about something. Begin finding that passion. So my challenge for you this week is to choose one area where you want to move from being passive to being passionate. Find one area of passivity that you feel like you need to step up. Now, that may mean you need to talk to somebody, talk to a friend, just kind of brainstorm with them about things you might be passionate about, or maybe find a mentor that can really help you build those areas and help you reject your passivity. And really, if you are just tired of being unseen and unheard, this is where the key is, because you've been unseen and unheard many times because of that passivity in your life. I'm not saying that's all the full reason, but many times that's what it is. So start leading with passion and stepping up. Now, some other things, just I want to offer you some help there. If you really want to start working and building and stepping out of passivity and you feel like you need real help, reach out to me. I'll give you a free coaching session and coach you up a little bit there, and we can talk some more. All right? Now, other things you can do for me this week is subscribe to my Powerless Leader podcast. Comment on it, rate it on your platform, share it with others, and get the word out about this, because I want to add value to you and I want to add value to others. This is not about profit. This is not about me making money. As you see, there's no ads here. This is about you growing in your leadership skills, about you stepping away and understanding that even being powerless organization doesn't mean you're not a leader, and how you can lead in a greater way. All right. So let me lead you with this thought today. You don't need a title to make a difference. You just need the courage to act. Don't wait. Don't withhold. Influence begins where passivity ends. All right, folks, I will see you in 2 weeks for the next episode of the Powerless Leader podcast. Thank you.